Rusty's joining the meeting too.
Oh.
Too bad we can't see him.
Yeah.
We can't see him. At present, and for about 5 years, we have fasted for 3 days a week, and then we fast every season change. So 4 times a year, we fast for 3 days to 7 days, somewhere in there, for long-term fast, and that's what super fasting is. And so, our program, Superfast, Superfit, also not only super fasting, but it also includes diet. So nutrition, whole food, plant-based diet is the optimal, and we're going to talk about protein today. And we also talk about fitness, so that's in there also. So we might talk about exercise and fitness. But as I said, today is protein, and what is the best source of protein? So let me pull this up here. So let me just ask you, what do you think is the best source of protein?
Well, I kind of know that there are varying types of proteins, but if I was to go on what society has taught me, I would naturally say meat.
Meat, okay, and that's what most people would say is meat is the best source of protein. We've been talking about this with some people around here where we live, and they've all said, well, meat's the best. And for several reasons, meat is actually not the best. So now I'm going to reveal to you what is the best source of protein.
Chicken breast. Many people think, right? Many people think that.
So this is scientific based. So this, and I got this from this particular study, but I've also read this from numerous studies. I mean, when I write my next book, and I wrote this in the fasting book, when I write my next book on food, this will be probably an entire chapter. And there's a lot of science behind this. And here's the link. I can send it to you if you want, but it tells us that animal protein is an important source of protein. However, potential health concerns do exist from a diet of protein consumed from primarily animal sources. So there are, meat is a complete protein. Eggs are a complete protein. Chicken breast is a complete protein. And that's where they've been able to tell people that it's a superior protein or a quality protein, whereas plant protein is not necessarily complete protein. There are some complete proteins, but so that's where they try and be wishy-washy and vague and say, oh, well, plant protein isn't a complete protein, so it's not a quality protein. However, this study says with a proper combination of sources, vegetable protein may provide similar benefits as protein from animal sources. So if you're eating a protein that isn't a complete protein, you can combine it with other source of plant protein and make a complete protein. And basically,
so by mixing the incomplete plant proteins, they obviously have different proteins, and then you will get the complete protein.
Correct. They have the complete set of essential amino acids, which we can't get we can't make ourselves. We can make some amino acid proteins, but the essential amino acids we have to get from food sources. So yes, if you for instance, wheat doesn't have a complete set of those essential amino acids, so it's not a complete protein. But if you combine it with a bean or something like that, then you have all the essential amino acids and it's complete. What is the best source of protein? And here it is. This is barley. It's unhulled barley. It's better than pearled barley. The more processed it is, the less nutrients and protein that it has in it. And it's barley and beans So you choose the beans. It could be black beans. It could be white beans. It could be garbanzo or chickpeas, garbanzo beans, pinto beans. Put them together and you have the complete protein. And we learned from the gladiator diet that beans and barley were the food of the gladiators. Okay, and this says, compared to the average inhabitant of Ephesus, which is where they uncovered this mass grave of gladiators, and they studied the bones to see what they ate, also the teeth. Gladiators ate more plants and very little animal protein. So we would be led to believe by the meat companies that gladiators ate a side of beef before they went out and fought, but they didn't. They ate a vegetarian diet that had little to do with poverty or animal rights. Gladiators, it seemed, were fat, consuming a lot of simple carbohydrates such as barley and legumes like beans. And this particular character who wrote this and did the study says it was designed for survival in the arena. He seemed to think that if they got cut and it was a superficial wound and they had a lot of fat there, that they wouldn't be as hurt as if they were lean. But I actually think it was because they wanted to be lean and strong, and the beans and barley protein actually does make you strong. And I'm going to go on here to kind of prove that animal protein is actually inferior to plant protein for a variety of reasons. So here's the next. Go ahead.
By the way, the masters actually eat a lot of meat, right, at that time, because gladiators, they are more like slaves, right? But the masters, their owners, actually ate a lot of meat, right?
Yes, even the average citizen in Ephesus would have eaten a lot of meat, and certainly the rich people ate more meat.
Rich people.
Yeah, the rich people ate more meat. So, all right. So here we are with long-term dietary patterns with pro-inflammatory and anti-inflammatory features of the gut microbiome. The gut microbiome is the bacteria and virus and fungi that you have in your gut. And it actually it determines how healthy you are. There's one study that I read that if you have a healthy gut microbiome, you would survive COVID-19 better than if you didn't, if you had a diseased one. So what does that mean, a diseased one? So I'm going to go back to my, can you see this?
Yeah, I can. It's quite hard to read on the phone, though. We can only really read the highlighted headings.
Okay, sure. I'll kind of read it for you. So anyway, one of the things that this gut microbiome study says is processed foods and animal-derived foods were consistently associated with higher abundances of, and then a whole bunch of bacteria here. Endotoxin is a poison, and basically it's inflammation. These are bacteria that cause inflammation, and I wrote about this in my book also. The opposite was found for plant foods and fish, interestingly enough, which were positively. Go ahead.
We are not reading that page. We are looking at the long-term dietary patterns, that page, but you are reading the other page, I think.
Okay, hold on. This one. Can you see the Word document now?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, okay, yep.
Okay, very good. So plant foods and fish were positively associated with short-chain fatty acids, and this pathways of nutrient metabolism, which is very important. Thank you for telling me that, JC. I'm still new.
Thank you, JC.
Yeah, still.
I know we are also listening, right? We didn't read, we are listening, but I still want to read if I can listen at the same time, right?
I am embarrassed.
For the pitch too.
I am embarrassed, but this red is from the sun, not from embarrassment. Anyway, Plant food consumption is associated with higher synthesis and conversion of essential nutrients by the gut microbiome. So you actually, by eating plants and getting used to eating plants, will get more nutrients from the plants than if you are eating meat. Your body will absorb more nutrients.
Well, it's easier to digest, I take it, than meat, isn't it?
I would say because meat kind of sits in your gut for days and it putrefies, actually. And that's kind of why we have bad smelling flatulence and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But this study says higher intake of animal foods, processed foods, alcohol, and sugar corresponds with a microbial environment that is characteristic of inflammation. And that's associated with higher levels of intestinal inflammatory markers. So the inflammation is the most important part there. You want to lower your inflammation, and what you find is that plant foods actually lower the inflammation, whereas meat products or animal products they cause more inflammation, and that goes throughout the body. And that's kind of why we gain fat and inflammation, inflamed tissues, and that kind of stuff. So why is that a problem? Why is inflammation a problem? And they talk about the gut microbiota affecting the immune components. So you're going to have a better immune system if you have healthy gut microbiota and lower inflammation. And they are implicated in a growing number of immune-mediated inflammatory diseases, diabetes, arthritis, it says lupus there. And gut dysbiosis means unhealthy gut. And basically what they're saying is an animal protein-based diet is going to give you an unhealthy gut. It's going to have gut dysbiosis associated with inflammation. And that even goes as far as causing cancer and cardiovascular disorders. So it is kind of important that you cut down on your meat and eat more plant protein.
So many diseases actually start from inflammation, right? Basically like that.
Many of the diseases that we know. Yes. Go ahead, Ian.
Now, what about your levels of like your pH of your gut, of that of your acid? There's been a lot of talk over the last few years that, an acid environment is where cancers thrive. And so you need to be drinking alkalized water and all of this type of stuff. Then I've heard contrary reporting to that, saying that, no, that's actually incorrect because it lowers the pH of the acid. It becomes more alkaline. And then that doesn't break down foods as well as it should do if the acid in your gut is at its normal level. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, the acid level in your gut or stomach basically is higher and lower based on what you eat. If you eat a lot of meat, you're going to have more acid in your stomach to digest that, because your stomach is where the proteins are digested. With the plant foods...
sorry. I'm just trying to... So the bile that comes out of your gallbladder that's injected into your stomach, that is highly acidic. Is that right?
That is correct. The bile... Yes. It is very acidic. So, and with plant proteins, your stomach is going to be less acidic because you don't need as much acid to digest the plant proteins. As far as your body acidity goes, most people will tell you that if you want a alkaline type body, you're going to eat plant proteins and plant foods rather than animal foods. But your body actually does a real good job of balancing the pH. So you don't really have to worry about that. But plant foods would be a lot better to help you with that whole thing. So,
well, it would take more energy to digest meat, wouldn't it? So that's why, the swamp juice, the what do you call it? Like put in the NutriBullet, the vegetable juices. When I've had that in the afternoons, and then I go for a bike ride or training, I feel a lot of energy, but I feel light and I feel fully awake.
Sure.
After drinking a smashed up vegetable juice.
I think we said in the last time we talked that when we are eating plants and a plant-based diet, we feel a lot better, a lot lighter than if we do eat meat. It just sits there like a rock and goes through us really slowly. So I agree with you on that 100%.
Is it another possibility that we have food in our stomach, all the blood should go to the stomach to help to digest, so we don't feel a lot of energy? But when you eat something that's easy to digest, so you don't need that much, blood in your stomach to help you. So maybe, it goes through your body easily, so help you to work out. I don't know. I just guess.
Possibly.
Well, you do. I mean, one of the worst feelings is if you go to Hungry Jack's and eat one of their big meat burgers like a Whopper, it sits in your stomach like a piece of lead for about a day.
Yeah.
Well, we started working out in the fasted state. So whenever we have food, any kind of food in our system, and we work out, we don't feel as healthy and as good and as energetic as when we're fasting. So we'll talk about that at some point in the future.
Yeah. Well, you've worked up to that.
Sure. Let me go on just a couple more things with protein sources here. And all cause and cause-specific mortality. So we're talking about death, right? So among the major protein sources, processed red meat or eggs was associated with higher risk of all-cause mortality. So you're going to die of many things if you eat a lot of processed red meat or eggs. Unprocessed red meat, eggs, or dairy products were associated with a higher risk of cardiovascular disease mortality, so heart disease. Egg consumption was associated with a higher risk of cancer mortality. Processed red meat consumption was associated with a higher risk of dementia mortality, so Alzheimer's and that kind of stuff. While consumption of poultry or eggs was associated with a lower risk of dementia mortality. So you may not die of Alzheimer's if you eat eggs, but you might die of cancer. So not real good. But in the substitution analysis, substituting of animal protein with plant protein, so eating more plant protein, less animal protein, was associated with a lower risk of all-cause mortality, cardiovascular disease, mortality in general, and dementia mortality. And substitution of total red meat, eggs, or dairy products with nuts, so substituting nuts for those three things, was associated with lower risk of all-cause mortality. So plant protein intake was inversely associated with all-cause mortality, cardiovascular disease mortality, and dementia mortality. Just it's going to make you live longer. It's going to stave off death for a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm not sure I'm going to. Oh, this is it. Okay, so T. Colin Campbell, he wrote Whole, and he also wrote the China study. And he basically said that rats that were given a cancer-causing agent and fed 20% animal protein, and the other was fed a diet of 5% animal protein. Every single animal in the 20% group developed cancer or cancer precursor lesions, while not one of the 5%ers did. So, and he did a study. He did a study where he actually was able to turn on and off the cancer switch by giving them 20% animal protein, cancer switch turned on, 5% cancer switch turned off, 20% cancer switch turned on, 5% cancer switch turned off. So what this tells me is that if someone didn't want to give up animal protein totally, that they would have to cut way back in order not to get disease, inflammation, cancer, this kind of stuff. And if you're
less than 5%, right?
Yes, if you're eating meat every day, 3 meals a day, you're at 20% or over. I know Westerners eat more than 20% animal protein in their diet. And if you eat maybe one or maybe 2 meals per week of animal protein, you'd be around the 5%. So yeah, better to cut way back. Questions and answers and questions here. Do you have any questions?
Okay. Yeah, I have, and I can't think what it's called, and it's to do with leaky gut syndrome. And it's it's like a mycelium, a type of fungus that we all have in us, and it's okay in that small amount, but it grows like a mycelium, like tentacles, and it makes holes in your stomach lining, and it gets into your bloodstream, and then it causes leakage, and you get undigested food proteins getting into your bloodstream, associated with all types of what's the name of this thing? It's in my brain, I just can't find it. And everyone has this mycelium type fungus in them, and candida, candida overgrowth is a massive problem for people. And I'm not sure, I was going to ask you, do you think that overgrowth, and when it actually starts to grow and pierce through the intestines and into your bloodstream, is that caused from animal protein digestion?
I would say yes. The candida thrives more with a lot of refined sugar, animal proteins, this kind of stuff. So if you went on a candida diet, let's say you went to a doctor, of course they're going to give you medicine right away, but besides the pharmaceuticals, they're going to tell you cut out these foods, and sugar is one of them. And so with a whole food plant-based diet, I'm sure that we had some problems with candida before, when we were, you've seen my before and after pictures. The before pictures when I was 100 kilograms, I'm sure that we had candida at that point. Maybe not JC. I can't speak for JC, but in our last physical workup, our medical check, we had perfect guts, and I had ulcerative colitis, and I asked the doctor. She said, your gut microbiota is perfect, and I said, I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis in China, and she said, well, it must have been a mild case. And I said, no, it was not mild at all. It was quite extensive. And she said, well, you don't have it anymore. So,
and what would that have been caused by?
The ulcerative colitis, they actually don't know what causes it, but I'm sure that alcohol, sugar, animal proteins, because I was eating a lot of animal proteins, these things, very, very few fruits and vegetables, and I'm sure that was the cause of my ulcerative colitis.
I mean, it sounds like I think beer, like with the carbohydrates, you can even buy bottles of beer that say on it 99% sugar-free and low-carb beer, but once you put it into your body, it turns into carbs and sugars. That's how your body processes it, isn't it?
Sure, absolutely. The alcohol turns into sugar, and the carbohydrates turn into sugar. A beer is no worse than a Coke, a soda, or even fruit juice that doesn't have the fiber with it. They're all basically on the same level, and our bodies process those sugars in the same way, and it's fructose is what it is. So it injures our liver, and when you eat fruits and vegetables, your body processes those sugars differently. So I'm sure that the whole food plant-based diet got rid of all the problems in my gut. So
there's something very funny that we noticed that before, like 6 years ago, when we drank a lot of beer and we didn't notice somewhere swollen up, because we were fatter at that time. But now, when we drank more beer than we should, then our ankles started to show, right?
Like really?
We noticed right away. That's so funny, right? We found bigger ankles. So like what happened to the ankles is because of the beer, right? Or diet. If we splurge too much sometimes, right? But before
we get
couldn't
inflammation.
tell. Yeah, before
Yeah.
we couldn't tell because we
I've got skinny ankles.
Mhm.
Say it again.
I've got skinny ankles. I'm just checking them.
Well, they might be even thinner if you started eating a whole food plant-based diet and fasting. So, fasting actually cleans us out at the cellular level. It gets rid of the unfolded protein. If we eat a lot of animal protein, our cells get filled up with the fat from the animal protein, but also from the vegetable. The vegetable oils also clog up our cells. And then we have misfolded protein, and damaged protein, which then causes the cells to dysfunction. And when we fast, we clean all of that out. And if we eat whole food plant-based, then it's replaced with good proteins, the right amount of fat in the cell, because we all need fat, and the right amount of carbohydrates. So it's a good thing to eat healthy and to fast, and your ankles would inevitably be skinnier